IIUM.FM, your campus radio.
Dear audience, this is your host Abu Sufian. Our topic today is Nigeria, problems and prospects under the incoming government. Today we will mainly discuss the last election of Nigeria and the insurgency of Boko Haram, and finally the future of Nigeria under the incoming government. Before we enter the main discussion, I'd like to introduce Nigeria to our audience very shortly. Nigeria is a West African country. It is called the Giant of Africa mainly because it is the most populous country in Africa, having 170 million people and has continent's largest economy. It is also the biggest oil producer in Africa. The country was under British colony since 1800 and it achieved its independence in 1960. Although it started its journey from 1960 as a republican country, only after 10 years of independence, military power ruled the country, and they ruled for nearly 3 decades. In 1999, democracy was restored. Since then, 5 presidential elections were held in Nigeria. Of all 5 elections, People's Democratic Party, PDP, won all 4 elections, except the last election which was held a month ago. And this election, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, the new party, All Progressive Congress, came to power. The opposition candidate Mohammad Buhari, who was a former army general, won the presidential election by over 2.5 million votes. To discuss the Nigerian election and impact of the election on the Nigerians, we have in our panel Abdulhakeem Adejumu, who is a PhD candidate at International Islamic University in Political Science Department. He also lectures in the same department, and Nurudeen Hassan, who is a former co-chairman of Academic and Intellectual Bureau of Student Representative Council at International Islamic University, Malaysia. Welcome to our program, Mr. Hakim and Mr. Hassan. So let us start the most important question. Why is the 5th general election or the presidential election so important that it achieved such a huge media attention from all around the world? I will start with Mr. Hakim.
First, I think Nigeria is very important in global politics. The importance of Nigeria, for example, is the largest economy in Africa. It's a very large market. And we also, in terms of culture, intellectual capacity, human resources, natural resources, Nigeria is a very big player. Then again, a lot of events that has been happening in the past 2 to 3 years with regards to the international terrorism, where we have the upsurge of the Boko Haram terror groupings. So it brought about, it became a very big issue, electoral issue. So it drew world attention into our election. Then at the local level, this is the first time we will see all the opposition party coming together.
That's why it's important. We are going to Mr. Hassan. Why do you think that this is so important in the political history of Nigeria and people of Nigeria, the last election?
Thank you so much. I think majorly Nigerians in diaspora, were very vocal this time around to have a change in the government, considering the antecedents of the ruling party, PDP. And not only that, what the socio-political problems this party had caused to the society is also having impact on the people outside, Nigerians in the diaspora. So they came together with one voice of having a change in government. And you have to agree that when people living especially in the West, people in the diaspora, when they were pressing for a change in their own country, it tends to, bring about the interest of the world powers into what is actually happening in that particular country.
Thank you. We are moving to the next question. Actually, the last election, it was the first time in Nigerian history that an opposition party won the election. But it was not an ordinary win. The difference is 2.5 million votes. What are the reasons behind this big win? Why Nigerian people chose APC, the All Progressive Congress? Mr. Hakim.
If you look at the aggregate, looking at the number of eligible voters, number of the votes, total votes cast, it's not really a big win in that respect. It's not a landslide win in that respect. But then, it is enough to make Buhari the winner. But having said that, you have to look at one thing. One factor that made the opposition party to garner so much vote The first one is the misrule, misgovernance of the People Democratic Party.
Okay.
The second one, essentially, is the quality of the people that made up the opposition. People like General Muhammad Buhari, who is a tested leader. He has ruled the country before, he has held various positions before, and he did creditably well. And most of the people that are in the opposition party, they had been people that are in position of authority, and they have done very well.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Hassan, as he mentioned that the previous government's problem, maybe corruption or something else, I don't know. So can you evaluate the last 16 years rule of PDP in 1 minute?
Going back to the memory lane, last 16 years of PDP rulership in Nigeria has been characterized with misrule, taking the people for a ride. Everything the people, there's no particular thing you can point at that the PDP had been able to, to give back to the people that put them in power. It's like even up to a particular point, they will rule Nigeria for at least 60 years. So the people were very tired about the rulership of the PDP. They wanted a change.
Can you specify one particular negative aspect of the government?
It's evident everywhere. The universities are not working. Up till now, Nigeria being the largest economy in Africa, we don't have stable electricity, no pipe-borne water, no motorable roads, everything.
Mr. Hakeem, can you tell us about the new government is going to be sworn in within weeks' time?
This is a government that during this period of PDP, unemployment has soared very high. Then you can also see insecurity is too bad. We are feeling more insecure every day, and that is what he's trying to point out. That this thing is really getting people crazy, and they felt that we need a change.
What are the expectations to the new government?
Nigerians don't expect General Buhari, to create a kind of paradise, in that part of the world. But what they are asking is the basic amenities, provision of basic amenities, improve the standard of our education, enough of leaving the country to study, every part of the world. We want to fill our country, then provide them stable electricity, let the people feel that, let there be a kind of share of God-given natural resources in the country.
The All Progressive Congress, APC, was formed in 6 February 2013, prior to the election. It is such a new political party. How can it ensure, how can it fulfill the desire of Nigerian people, being such a new political party?
Yeah, it's a new political party, but it is being membered by qualified, tested and trusted politicians. People like General Muhammad Buhari, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Onaya Onu, like Governor of Rivers State. These people, they've handled leadership positions in the past. They did very well, and some of them are still very active in politics.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem and Mr. Hassan. We are going for a very short break. We'll be right.
IIUM.FM, your campus radio.
Welcome back, dear audience. We are in the second session of our discussion. So this session we'll discuss mainly about the Insurgent Group Boko Haram. Boko Haram is a militia group based in northwest of Nigeria. The group had linked with Al-Qaeda, and this year they declared their affiliation with Syria and Iraq-based terrorist group ISIS. Reportedly, they killed more than 5,000 people, though the actual casualties is much more than this figure. Boko Haram's insurgency in certain northeastern, north central and central part of Nigeria has been going on for years. But the group mainly drew international attention after kidnapping 276 schoolgirls from the Nigerian area of Chibok in April 2014. The present government has notably failed in tackling Boko Haram. The President-elect Mohammad Buhari, before and after the election, showed his commitment and promise time and again about the annihilation and destruction, and he was determined to destroy Boko Haram. And I quote him, he said, "We should spare no effort in tackling the insurgency. We have a tough and urgent job to do." Since 2009, 10,000 people have died in the civil war, and 3,000 people died in 2015 alone. 1.5 million people in Nigeria has been displaced internally in last 6 years. Surely it is a horrendous scenario. Starting with Mr. Hakeem, The first question is the name of Boko Haram. How can an organization or a group of people who claim to be Islamic name their organization as Boko Haram? Boko means book, Haram means prohibited. That means book is prohibited. What is your take on that?
I think associating the Boko Haram group with Islam is out of place. They don't represent the religion of Islam. Whatever they call themselves, as long as they try to associate their activities with Islam, we are going to say no, because this is purely a terrorist organization that has nothing to do with Islam. They are just a set of criminal groupings that's essentially, getting involved in criminal activities.
Thank you. I think you made your point. Mr. Hassan, how Islamic is Boko Haram?
Boko Haram members did not give themselves, that name. It was given to them by the people based on their ideology. So having Western education is haram, because of the perceived atrocities, people commit when they go to the universities. So that is why the people name them Boko Haram.
Thank you. Now let's come back to the kidnapped schoolgirls, 276. This is heart-wrenching, and the international media is covering the news since then, in April 2014, I think. Do you think that the government should have acted more aggressively, more actively, more efficiently to tackle Boko Haram and get back those girls?
I think we are just reducing the impact of the Boko Haram terrorist group. Those that Boko Haram are kidnapped, they are more than 200, more than 500. They've been kidnapping people before the Chibok girls. They kidnap after them. So I think the government, that is why everybody's talking against the government. They acted very irresponsibly by allowing these children to be kidnapped. They even show more irresponsibility by not immediately making very serious effort at rescuing the girl. But now the military are making some gains. They are trying to free some of those kidnapped victims. But then they should have acted more responsibly before and immediately after the kidnapping of those.
Thank you for your answer. Mr. Hassan, in a CNN interview, Mr. Buhari said that the performance of the military was and is still being affected by corruption. So we need to fight Boko Haram. There is no doubt, no question about it. But how can Buhari will fight this terrorist group with a corrupted military or an army that is affected by the corruption?
Let me give you an analogy to make you understand how Buhari can fight Boko Haram with the same set of the military chiefs. Buhari was a former military, general. He knows everything about the Nigerian army in and out. It's not like President Jonathan that does not know anything about the military. They just give him any flimsy information, he takes it. Buhari, you cannot deceive him. He knows everything about, the insurgency. He had, even when he was the former military head in Nigeria, a similar insurgent group like Boko Haram, they call them Matasini group. So he's an experienced person.
I don't want to believe that Nigerian military is corrupt. I just think that because we have a corrupt executive administration
System.
Yeah, the top echelon of the military is also affected by corruption. Because we have a set of professional, disciplined military armed forces that have performed creditably well in peacekeeping operations all over the world. We have been given this notification by United Nations. We have performed very well, but then because of the top echelon of the military structure is affected by the executive corruption.
Thank you. What are the shortcomings that the previous government had in tackling Boko Haram? Can you specify? These are the shortcomings. That's why they didn't fight. They failed to fight.
The previous administration, the corruption is the first thing, and it seeped from the executive down to all the layers of government, including the armed forces. And the second one is that they so get themselves drained in this culture of ethnic politics. They see the Boko Haram issue as a northern issue. They say the north is trying to, fight the administration and all that. So they were not very responsive at the initial stage.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to another important issue is the Western media's hypocrisy, I may say. Whenever there is a terrorist organization or group like this, they tag them as Islamic and jihadist immediately. So do you think that this is the right way in covering news about any terrorist group in the world? If you tag them by a religious affiliation, then there is a problem. They can recruit people easily, isn't it? What is your take on that?
Because of my academic background, I don't really bother about the hypocrisy of the Western media. I'm bothered about solving the security problem of my country. Because as long as some people, they say Bismillah Rahman Rahim and they kill people, you expect an average mind to relate them to Islam. So I think it's a problem. We are going to solve it. Whatever the Western media says is rubbish to me. I don't care. What I'm bothered about is solving our problem. We have a lot of Islamic extremists that misuse the name to commit crimes, to cause havoc. So at times I don't blame, small minds when they try to relate this to Islam. I just believe that it's just the quality of their thought. So essentially speaking, I think we are going to solve our problem. We are going to make sure that we separate Islam from the activities of this terrorist organization.
Thank you, Mr. Hassan. There is an allegation against Mr. Buhari and his political party that he patronizes Boko Haram, or some say he creates Boko Haram in order to stigmatize and to make the job difficult for Goodluck Jonathan, the incumbent president. Do you think these allegations are true?
Without mentioning any word, the allegation is baseless. In what ways? Number one, President Jonathan is the leader of the country. As a president, you are equally the the commander-in-chief of all armed forces. That means the military, the army, air force, all of them are under his control. So if actually the General Buhari was financing Boko Haram activities and the government has enough evidence, so they should have, it's based on his sheer political, allegation.
The last question of this session, there is an allegation against also Mr. Goodluck Jonathan that he tried to take a political advantage and he did not fight Boko Haram intentionally. What is your take on that?
Okay, I'm not going to look into the intention of the...
Just 30 seconds, yeah.
I won't look into his intention. I will look at his action. He did not fight Boko Haram, responsibly. He made our country insecure. He introduced corruption and he flourished corruption in our country.
Thank you, Mr. Hakeem. We are going for another short break. Audience, please stay.
IIUM.FM, your campus radio.
Dear audience, welcome back to our program. Today we are talking about Nigeria problems and prospects under the incoming government. In this session, we will discuss about the future of Nigeria under the new incoming government. Let us start with one of the quotes of Buhari. He said, just after winning the election, I quote him, "A new day and a new Nigeria are upon us." Mr. Hakeem, can you explain what does he imply by a new day and a new Nigeria?
Okay, essentially speaking, what I think he implied by this is that we are going to have the old order is going to be, removed. We have a new structure, a new anti-corruption structure, a new structure that provides employment for Nigerian people, a new structure that gives hope to the people, a new structure that improves the economy, a new structure that tries to develop the country, that polish our image abroad, and try to provide security for the people of Nigeria.
Mr. Hassan, what is the word new imply?
Because we are moving away from bad leadership to responsible leadership. A government that will be responsive to the masses, a government that will be ready, to take the lead in fighting corruption, a government that will be ready to provide basic amenities for the people, a government that is ready to build the much expected, structure that will project Nigeria as a good country in the committee of the world, So that is actually what President-elect General Buhari implied by saying new day.
You are mainly praising President-elect Mohammad Buhari. He was in fact an army general and he ruled the country from 1983 to 85 as a military ruler. And there are many allegations like he banned political meetings, he detained thousands of people, and there was a secret tribunal who executed people that did not commit capital crimes. How will you respond to those critics?
There wasn't any secret tribunal during that time. I think according to him, he set up 4 tribunals and they were all carried out in open places. You have to understand that during that time, military leadership was an order of the day in Africa. Democracy was not popular. During that time, I think less than 5 countries in Africa were using democracy, were under democratic settings. And, jailing people, When he was presenting a talk in the UK,
How will you justify banning political parties?
banning. What led to banning political parties? What led to that? Before General Buhari came in, before he took over power, Nigeria was under democratic setting then. The politicians were grossly corrupt. We got then, they were super corrupt. Everything was in shambles. So he had to come in.
I think you made your point. Coming back to Mr. Hakeem, President-elect Buhari, he said that I am a converted Democrat. Do you think he will be really a true Democrat?
Okay, we're looking at the structure. It's a different structure now. The General Buhari of the military era was a dictator. He curbed civil liberties. Also did things that were not consistent with democratic values. But then, now, he is coming in through a democratic structure that will curb most of the excessive powers of a military ruler. He's coming out through elections. He's going to have a senate. He's going to have a parliament that will curb his powers. He's going to serve under a constitution, because military rulership, you usually know they will suspend the constitution, use decree. And he's been contesting an election, he's been losing, and he's been conducting himself in very democratic fashion. So which shows that he's going to abide by principles of democracy.
Thank you. I think perhaps the biggest problem that Nigeria has been having for last few decades is corruption. There is no doubt about it, I think. Because of this corruption, Nigeria could not become a developed country by 2015, what it's supposed to become, because it has oil and it is the 12th largest producer of petroleum in the world, 8th largest and biggest exporter in the world, petroleum exporter. How do you think Buhari will fight this corruption and make Nigeria, let's say, like Switzerland?
We are very hopeful because of his team. He has his own personal antecedents, which is anti-corruption. Then his team, the team he's working with, they are very credible people that are done creditably well. They are also people that they've instituted good government in their various states. Governor of Rivers State, Governor Fashola of Lagos State, and some others that are done creditably well in their various positions of governance and leadership. So we believe that he's going to do well because he has a very good team.
It's very easy to fight corruption in Nigeria, as it's very easy to infest corruption. What do I mean by that is, despite the fact that we are under, political dispensation, much power is still rested in the presidential office, in the presidency. The president still calls the shots, in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So that is why we saw many impunities coming from President Jonathan, despite having the Senate and the House of Representatives to cut down his power. They couldn't do that. So what the point I'm trying to make is that the only thing we need in Nigeria as of today is just one man, an upright person, a president, an upright president that is ready, to be upright, to discharge democratic responsibilities to the people.
Thank you for your answer. Mr. Hakeem, the President-elect Buhari is going to be sworn in as president within a few weeks' time, I think at the end of coming month. He is going to be sworn in at a time when his country is divided by sectarian violence, corruption is crippling the economy and development of the country, and the country is witnessing a demonic and incredibly powerful rise of Boko Haram. So all these problems, but still, how can you convince a Nigerian to be hopeful under Buhari?
Okay, I've said we are hopeful because Buhari has a personal history of good governance. He has a personal history of anti-corruption. He has a personal history of competent leadership, and he surrounds himself with people of such qualities. So this is giving us the very beautiful hope. At the end of the day, the country is going to be in for a good time.
Thank you. I think all of you will agree with me that one of the biggest challenge that Buhari will face, that is uniting people of North and South. I think the country is divided so bitterly. Can you tell us and our audience that why is this difference between North and South? Is it oil? Because the South has oil and all the development are here, and the North is deprived of development, deprived of good education, healthcare, transportation. Why? Why is this difference between North and South?
It's poverty. If poverty is removed, all these problems will disappear.
So it has nothing to do with oil.
Yeah, they will talk about oil, but when poverty is removed, some of these differences will disappear. Because when poverty disappears, people tend to get busy with things that develop the community. And they don't think about somebody is not from the north, somebody is a Christian, somebody is a Muslim. Food does not have religion. So I think if people get good food, if the physical quality of life index improves, I'm very sure differences of religion and tribe and ethnicity is going to disappear in the country. We have the experience before, and I'm very sure it's going to be the same again.
We think this will happen as you anticipated. But as a government of a country, government should not differentiate between north and south. Government is government for everyone in the country. But do you think that last 16 years or last few decades, the government was neutral in developing both part of the country? What is your take on that?
Actually, one of the issues we have against President Jonathan is that for the first time in the history of Nigeria, the country, people have been divided along religious and ethnic lines. It has never got to this height in the history of Nigeria. We see presiding over both Muslims and Christians in the country, but you see him kneeling down in front of pastors everywhere in every churches, pinching Muslims against Christians, Yoruba against Hausas against Igbos. It was the highest height of irresponsibility from any president from Nigeria, and that is the major issue we had against him. People believe that for President Buhari coming in by May 29, hopefully, he's going to address all these anomalies.
Coming back to another important issue, can you clarify, Mr. Hakeem, from an academic point of view? In the West, there is a rise of Islamophobia. And when they hear the term Sharia law, then Islamophobic ideology comes in. What is Sharia law? Is it something evil or something good?
Sharia law is good. It promotes, it cleans the society. It promotes moral uprightness. It brings the good into society, and it promotes good brotherliness, good neighborliness, and it brings out the morals, with good morals in us.
But people, by definition, when we say Sharia law, they think people are cutting people's head. How do you convince those people?
Because of misrepresentations by various disgruntled terrorist elements in the society. But as far as we are concerned, the issue of Sharia law does not even apply to the country for now. We are talking about good governance. We are talking about eradication of corruption. Because Nigeria is a multi-religious community. We can only have Sharia law. We have Muslim domination, probably in the northern part of the country.
So you are saying that our audience and people in Nigeria and people outside Nigeria do not need to be worried about Sharia law if it is implemented under Buhari's regime?
No, it's not going to be implemented. Obviously, Nigeria is a population of 50% Muslim, 50% non-Muslim. So the Sharia law is not even in the manifesto of the APC. And as far as the party is concerned, the issue of Sharia law becomes it's not something they are discussing. There's a provision in the constitution. Any particular state that want to implement it, we have a constitution. Nigeria is a multi-religious entity. It's a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multiracial entity. You can't impose Sharia law, just as nobody can impose Christian law.
How will he tackle extremism? The question to Hassan.
Actually, I have a take on the
not only Boko Haram, every
of
other extremist organization out there in Nigeria.
Okay, improving the security outfits in Nigeria, the police, improvement of the police force. These are professional bodies, Nigerian police, Nigerian military, all of them. He rightly said earlier, it's the scenario whereby they found themselves, actually compel them to be corrupt. So when the top is corrupt, it infects, the other parts of the government. And talking about Sharia law, you see, it was a political allegation against Muhammad Buhari, being a Muslim, a very, a good Muslim, that this guy, if you vote for him, is going to implement Sharia law against you. He will be cutting your hands. That is why Nigerian Christians were afraid of Muhammad Buhari in the past elections. That is why they did not vote for him. Buhari, as he rightly said, is a converted Democrat and is going to follow to the letter the manifesto of his party, the APC. And there is nowhere in the manifesto whereby implementation of Sharia law is mentioned. And let me tell you this, considering the political platform in Nigeria, there is no way we can implement Sharia law in Nigeria right now. So what Nigerians are actually yearning for is good governance, good leadership, provision of basic amenities.
Yeah. Thank you. I want from Hakeem and Hassan the last thought that you have within 1 minute. What do you anticipate? What are you hoping for to the new government? What change he will bring in?
Okay, I anticipate a new beginning. I anticipate do away with the past evils. I anticipate a kickstart of good governance. I didn't anticipate a paradise immediately, and I think Nigerians should be very much aware of that. This guy isn't going to change everything overnight. It's something that has been destroyed over more than 1 decade. So he's not going to come and they should be patient with him, and I think he's going to do well.
As he said, Mr. Hakeem said, Nigeria is not going to change overnight. It is not turning to be Switzerland within 10 years or 5 years' time. How long it will take?
I believe within 10 years it can turn to Switzerland. I have to disagree with him in this aspect. When I traveled to Turkey the last time, before Nigeria could be transformed to better, it will take us about 30, 40 years. But I got to know that Turkey, 12 years, even less than 12 years to reach what they... So considering what the Nigeria is gifted with, we can make it in the next 8 years. I'm very hopeful.
So. We believe so. Thank you, Mr. Hakeem and Hassan, for joining our program. And dear audience, thank you all for listening to us. We believe that Nigeria will become a prosperous, more democratic, peaceful, and a successful country under the incoming new government. And President Buhari will prove that he is really a converted Democrat, he is a true Democrat, and he will ensure he will not repeat his predecessors. He will start a new beginning as Mr. Hakeem and Hassan anticipated. Thank you. It is Abu Sufian.
IIUM.FM, your campus radio.